So we're going to go ahead and get started. I am super excited. I named this session Scholarships Poppin' because we all like money. People think when you go to college, hey, what is it that I need to do? You know, we all have these dreams and aspirations, but there's also certain things that we have to do and certain tips and education that is needed. So I wanted to bring in someone really special to talk to you. Her name is Andrea Leonard. She is from Washington, D.C. She is a North Carolina A&T alumna. Hey, Aggie Pride. And she also went to the University of Maryland. And she's an educator. I don't know how many years you've been doing, worked as an educator. And she's also the owner of Education Prep Plus, which is a college and career consulting agency or consulting group that helps college students or high school students be able to find the resources that they need to be successful. So I'm going to encourage you, for one, to ask questions. I want you to be engaging. I want you to ask the things that, if it sounds dumb, ask the question so that you can be successful, because we don't know what you need unless you say it. So closed mouths don't get fed. So we appreciate you for joining. And I'm Miss Alana. For those who do not know, I'm the founder and executive director of I'm a Queen. I forgot this is an open session, so I forgot I'm not in my mentoring field. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I have Azara, who's also assisting me as well. So Andrea, I'm gonna turn it over to you, and I thank you so much.
Thank you, Alana, for that welcome. Good afternoon, everybody. So happy to be here to talk about scholarships and where to find them and all those good things that are related to paying for school as little as you possibly can. So a little bit about me. I am from Washington, D.C. I am an Aggie Pride. I'm a graduate of the University of Maryland. I'm also a first generation college graduate. So I was the first person in my immediate family to go to college and to finish. And the way I was able to do that was I had to make sure that I was on top of scholarships and grants because my family just simply did not have the money for me to go to school. So before we get started, I'm looking at the chat. For those that just joined, Alana did ask that if you just joining us, put your name, your age, and what high school you're from. And if you're a parent, just put your parent or guardian. I'm looking, we have some 12th graders, some 10th graders, some 11th graders. So I see we have one senior from the class of 2021. So because it's quite a few of you in here, I do want to kind of get a feel for what schools you guys are looking at, what schools are you interested in, and what you want to major in. So if I could have my students who are 12th graders just jump right in and tell me what school. And I'm just going to call the first one out. I see Maximus from Georgia. What schools are you interested in?
I am interested in Fort Valley and Shorter.
Okay, excellent. What do you want to study?
Business management and criminal justice as a minor.
Awesome. Okay, double major. I want to make sure I'm saying your name right. Is it Kaya or Kaya, Kayia from Greensboro?
Kaya. I'm actually a junior.
Okay. Well, that 11th grade, you're a rising senior because the school year is almost over with. So what schools are you looking at and what are you looking to major in?
My main schools are A&T is my number one, FAMU, Clark Atlanta, and I want to major in biomedical engineering and minor in business.
Woo! Okay. Yeah, you're trying to do great things. Biomedical engineering. I actually have a student at Towson University who's interested in that, and I'm happy to connect you with her maybe later so you can kind of get a feel for what's happening in that field. I'm gonna call out a couple of more students and then I want to get started. Angelica, as a senior at Middle College at Bennett. Angelica, are you there?
Oh, sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Yes, ma'am, I'm here. So what the schools that I'm interested in is A&T, Central, but I'm going to A&T. That's my decision. And I want to study in visual arts because I want to be a future animator. I want to work in game design as well.
Awesome, awesome. This is so exciting to hear. I'm going to call out one more student, Sarah Felder from Greensboro College, Middle College.
Yes.
Hi, Sarah. What schools are you looking to go to college?
My top school is Howard. Then it's FAMU. And I forgot the names of the other ones, but I know they're either in Georgia or Florida.
Okay, okay. And what do you want to study?
Something in the medical field. I don't really know the name of the major.
Oh, that's fine. So I'm happy that you guys are, whether you're in the 12th grade or 11th grade, you guys are thinking about college. You know what schools that you want to go to, and you guys are very specific about what you want to study. That's excellent. I can't say that I was even thinking like that in the 11th grade. But you all named some schools that you're definitely going to need some money to pay for, especially some of the private schools that you named. But it is possible with the proper planning. So what I want to do is I want to jump right into it. I want to start off with showing you guys a clip of a former student of mine, and I'm just going to share my screen. This young lady, as I'm pulling up her information, this young lady was a student of mine several years ago, and she was in dire need of scholarships. She was in a situation, and I don't know if this, if this is the situation with some of you all, but she was in a situation where, her parents did not they didn't qualify for need-based aid. And her biggest fear was, oh my goodness, I don't get the Pell Grant, I don't get the need-based scholarships. How am I going to go to school? Just because my parents work, that doesn't mean that they really have it. So she really, really like got down and out about it and was like, I don't think I'm going. I'm just probably going to have to take a gap year. And this is a pretty good student. And we're like, no, what you're going to do is live in this counseling suite and you're going to apply for scholarships every day. And we're going to make the best of your time because we're going to have you apply for scholarships that are actually a match for you. And we'll get into that in a second. So I just want you guys to see a result of hard work. And I want you to pay attention of who gave her the scholarship, just in case you didn't know that they gave out scholarships.
So join us for fun health activities
like
Yoga for All and virtual dance party at the NVC4 Telemundo 44 Virtual Health and Fitness Expo. Registration is free.
Local high schooler has 50,000 big reasons to celebrate this evening, thanks to McDonald's.
That you're winning. You are winning $50,000. $50,000!
That's Asia Sands that you see and hear. Asia goes to DC's Mathematics, Science, Technology High School in Northeast DC. Asia tells us a couple of weeks ago she entered a McDonald's scholarship competition, but she had no idea the prize would be so large.
I'm feeling like God is good. God is good all the time. I'm feeling so happy. I'm feeling relieved. I'm feeling like I can just do anything, and I'm feeling like...
What a smile.
We're feeling it too.
Asia tells us she's planning the industrial engineering next year at Morgan State.
So that was my former student, Asia. And as you can see, Asia is very lively. And that was her personality all the time. So this is Asia. Asia won $50,000 from McDonald's, a place that we go to. Well, I don't go as much as I used to, but McDonald's awards scholarships. Now, I will say at that time, that $50,000 scholarship. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys can't see the screen that I'm on. Can you guys see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So Asia won $50,000 from McDonald's. And she won additional scholarships after that from local organizations, community organizations, different contributors to the community. And she graduated from high school in 2015. She did go to Morgan State. She graduated last fall. She graduated in December. She is now an industrial engineer with the U.S. Army government, and she did not pay a dime for school. And this is not a student who was need-based. So that means she didn't get Pell Grants. She didn't get scholarships because her parents or guardians made a certain amount. So this was strictly on merit. But the way that Asia even made that, because she was adamant about applying for scholarships every day. She wore us out as counselors, and we wore her out. And that is just the mindset. I'm just preparing you guys for the things that I'm going to say. That's the mindset that you have to have with scholarships, because I could sit here for an hour and see all the websites to buy the scholarship. Sure, you can go on Unigo, you can download Scholly, but if you don't incorporate that into your daily routine, just like you do your homework, just like you check in with your teachers, just like you get things done for your personal life, then you're not going to see the fruits of your labor. So what is a scholarship? A scholarship is, give me one second. Okay, so a scholarship is a financial award that is given to a student to continue their education based on their academic and community merit and or need. It does not need repayment. So again, you know, this is something based on your academics and or your merit. It could be based on a financial situation. Whatever the case is, you don't have to pay it back. Who gives scholarships? So colleges give institutional scholarships, and I'm sure my 12th graders have probably heard that word before. So that means that these are scholarships coming directly from the institution that you've been accepted to. Nonprofit organizations give scholarships all the time. For-profit organizations give out scholarships. Government agencies give out scholarships. So if there's anyone that's on this call right now and you have a parent that may be a postal worker, that's considered the federal government, or someone who works for like FEMA, Department of Defense, the Army, any of those agencies that fall under the federal government, there's actually a scholarship. If you are a 12th grade student, the deadline, I believe, is either March 26th or March 31st, is towards the end of the month, for being a dependent. All you have to do is be a dependent of a federal government worker, 12th grade, headed to college. And I'm happy to share what that website is. And some state government agencies also award scholarships. You will have to just check within your town. Churches give out scholarships. There's one church, help me out, Alana, I can't think of the name of it, the one with the big lions in the front. House of Prayer.
House of Prayer.
Yes. Years ago, and I don't know if they still do it, House of Prayer would give out scholarships. And House of Prayer is located in different places all up and down, you know, the East Coast. They give out scholarships. Community citizens. And when I say community citizens, it doesn't take much for anyone to award a scholarship. I could just say, hey, I want to award a scholarship, and it's for students who come from Washington, D.C., who went to my high school. It's good to check in with community leaders, such as some of your mayors. In Maryland, there's the senatorial scholarship and a delegate scholarship. And that means that our senators and our delegates, they have their own scholarships that they award to students who live in this area. So there are different avenues to find scholarships. Usually they're right in your face and you just don't know it. So can I get scholarships? There are countless scholarships, and I'm sorry, Alana, I meant to change this part too, because I initially thought that I would just be speaking to young ladies, but there are scholarships for young ladies, for young men, for moms. If you are on the call and maybe, you know, you're a mom and you're going back to school or you're trying to get through school, I think it's momscholarships.net. There are scholarships just for you. There are scholarships for senior citizens. There are scholarships for everyone. And when do I start looking for them? You start looking for them now. I do want to say that there's often a narrative, you can earn scholarships when you're very little, like 4 and 5, and all that very well may be true, but it's best to look for scholarships that are concentrated, and we'll get into that a little later. So just to kind of touch on Alana's work with I Am a Queen. So these are some scholarships that are for young ladies, and then I'll talk about some scholarships that are for everyone next. But I'm going to leave this slide up just for a little bit, and if there are any young ladies in the room, any parents in the room, and you have any young ladies that are graduating, these are some scholarships, organizations that award scholarships just to young ladies. And Alana, I can also send you this information too if I didn't already send it. But I just want to touch on a few. So the Delta Sigma Theta, Alpha Kappa Alpha, Zeta Phi Beta, these are all the Black Greek organizations. They award scholarships all the time. I do want to say that usually these scholarships are not coming from they're not coming from the students who are actually like on campus going to school and like they may have just crossed, or they've been in the organization for a few years. These are usually coming from graduate chapters. So those who are professionals and they're out of school, they're usually the ones that are awarding the scholarships. Wherever you live, whether it's Georgia, Greensboro, Virginia, Maryland, always, 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 this is how I help a lot of my clients. The first thing I do is that I'm looking up the graduate chapters or the chapters that are in the area or the city where I live. I go to their website. Usually there's something that says scholarships, and you find out when they're giving the scholarships out and how much when they are giving them out, what the criteria is, and how much the scholarships are worth. I guarantee you, wherever you live, there's some chapter awarding scholarships for students that are going to high school. Collegesofdistinction.com. When you have an opportunity, please check that website out. They have so many scholarships listed for young ladies that it was just too many to put in a slide. So you can find scholarships there. The National Association of Negro Business and Professional Women's Clubs, countless scholarships. And these scholarships, I know we have a college student on this call. Some of these scholarships are for college students, as well as the National Association of Colored Women's Club, the National Hookup of Black Women, the National Society of Black Engineers has scholarships for everyone. I highly encourage you, if you are a student who is interested in engineering, and I'm talking to high school students as well as college students and parents or guardians of those students, if you have a student who's very much interested in engineering, in STEM, please join the junior chapter of the National Society of Black Engineers. When you become a member of that, there are exclusive scholarships available to you. All you have to do is apply. So make sure that you are a member of that. If you are, this is not listed, but if you are a student who has been invited to join the National Honor Society, don't lax on that application. Go ahead and join, because there are scholarships for students who are members of the National Honor Society. I had a client last year. She had no idea, but because she told me that she was a National Honor Society member, when the scholarship rolled out, I had her apply for it. And I think that scholarship is up to $3,000 or $5,000 towards college. I want to stop really quick. Are there any burning questions before I keep going? Okay. Okay, so finding the scholarship. So again, kind of touching back on what I said earlier, the first place you need to look in is your community. We talked a little bit about churches, religious and community-based organizations. We talked about the Greek organizations, but your local grocery stores, as you saw, McDonald's awards scholarships, Starbucks, they award scholarships, Chick-fil-A, they award scholarships, Walmart, if you work there, they award scholarships, and Publix. If I'm not mistaken, I think Publix is a grocery store in North Carolina. Am I right?
Yes, it's very new. We probably got like 4 stores.
Publix awards scholarships. If you are a member of, I can't remember the name of the club. I think it's either Future Business Leaders of America, or it may be another scholarship, it may be another organization, but Publix does award scholarships. So the next time you guys go to Publix, if you can go to the customer assistance desk, ask a representative to give me information about the Publix scholarship, or you can actually look it up. Harris Teeter, I think they do scholarships. It was a little sketchy when I saw their information. If you live in this area, the Washington, D.C. area, Giant, Safeway, in conjunction with the Greater Washington Urban League, they give out scholarships. Employee-based scholarships. So if you are a student who works, whether it's part-time, just on the weekends, a couple of days out of the week, if you're a full-time person, if you are a parent or guardian, check with your employer to see if they give out scholarships. Sometimes this information is just not on Front Street. People don't ask, but the money is there. So make sure that you're checking, you're leaving no stone unturned when it comes to scholarship money. And lastly, banks and credit unions. If you are a member of a credit union, there's a good chance that your credit union gives out scholarships, but you just didn't know about it. Up here, there's something called the Credit Union Association of Maryland. If you are a part of a credit union, student and parent, and if you're a parent or guardian and you have a credit union account, you should get your child a credit union account as well, because it makes them eligible for the scholarship too. So check with your banks and your local credit unions. And household products. There are so many household products. If you just type in the name and put scholarship in Google, you will see that they give out scholarships. So the people that make Gain, Febreze, and Charm, and Procter and Gamble, they give out scholarships. Again, and for my person that's on here in college, some of these are for college students. Clorox, they give out scholarships. When we were little, playing with Hot Wheels and Barbies and Fisher Price and Mattel, they give out scholarships. BP Gas gives out wonderful big scholarships for students who are interested in STEM. And Coca-Cola, of course, gives out scholarships. So, if you're just in the house, like chilling, and like I have zero water here, sometimes you may want to say, who makes zero water? Okay, I'll look them up, put the word scholarship in Google, and a scholarship application may pop up. So it's all about being a detective. Are there any questions? And if you have a question, I'm going to ask that you actually just say the question, because the way I have the screen, I can't see the chat at the moment.
Della wants to know, will the presentation be emailed as well as a completed list of scholarships mentioned after the workshop?
So what I can do is, Alana, I'll send you, I'm not going to email the whole presentation. I'm going to send you a condensed version of the things, like where you can find scholarships, like finding scholarships, like this slide, the other scholarship that listed the scholarships for young ladies. And then there's another slide that's going to have more scholarships listed with reputable websites. So I can do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next slide. Okay, so let's kind of get into when you are applying for scholarships. This is what you don't do. So when you're completing a scholarship, the first thing, you need to make sure that the application is not outdated. And here's why this is important. And unfortunately, I saw this a lot this year. There are some organizations that the pandemic, they put them in a tight crunch, especially nonprofits, and they just cannot award scholarships this year. There's one scholarship, it's not all of them, but it's a certain scholarship that's under the United Negro College Fund, UNCF. And I kept seeing a scholarship link that was outdated. It had 2019, 2020 information. And before I had any students put in their personal information, their name, their birthday, your social security number, and all that other kind of stuff, I contacted them and asked them, will you be updating your website or sending out the new application? And unfortunately said this year we don't have the funds for that scholarship. So it's very important to make sure that when you're filling out this information, that it is not outdated, because a lot of the times when it is outdated, that means that scholarship either is not happening this year or that whole effort has been canceled. If you pay for an application, don't pay for an application and the organization is not legit. There are some scholarship applications that are legit and they do ask for you to pay. So as an example, there's a chapter of Sigma Gamma Rho in this area. I don't know if they're still doing it, but when you apply for their scholarship, you did have to pay a $20 fee. The scholarship was worth, I think, $1,000. And this is something that I had some students do several years ago, but those students actually did win that scholarship. So they paid $20 and got $1,000 back. Just make sure that if that's the case, that you make sure that the organization is a legitimate organization. And what do I mean by legitimate? They should be able to show you references, people, saying what their experience was. They should have a decent website. They should have a working telephone number, a working email. And if you feel like you need to get a resume, somebody should be able to give you some credentials. If they take offense to that, move on. Because if someone was to ask me that, I have no problem turning those things over. The same with paying someone to help you with scholarships. So my business is not a nonprofit. I am for profit. So that means when I work with families and students and organizations closely, there's a fee, because I'm giving you extra time and extra attention, and I'm doing the legwork of finding the scholarships, helping you write the essays. I'm doing all those things that you may not have time for, or that you just don't feel as skilled to do. If you're going to pay for someone to help you with with those things, you should be able to get credentials, a resume, references. Really, if they're taking money and doing this service, they should have something called an EIN. That's a business identification number. And they should also be legitimate. There are a lot of people, unfortunately, who have graduated from college and they feel that they are a college or scholarship counselor, and that's not necessarily the case. This takes years of training. This takes years of mistakes and learning. And it's a constant watch on what scholarships are out, which ones are closed, what's trending in post-secondary education, what colleges are accepting these types of students, et cetera, et cetera. So just be careful when you're doing those things. When you're applying for scholarships, if they are asking for your social security number and it is a legitimate organization, say like, Coca-Cola, that's pretty big, or even Alana's organization, that's a nonprofit that's locally based and small, withholding your social is only going to eliminate you from a scholarship opportunity. If it's feeling super sketchy, then you shouldn't be applying in the first place. But withholding your social security number, it just only eliminates you. And the reason why they're asking for their socials, because usually these are large sums of money, $1,000, $2,000, $10,000. We want to make sure that it's going to the right person and that no fraud takes place in the midst of a transfer from their account to your school account or to your bank account, or however they want to do it. And 9 times out of 10, especially with bigger organizations, they can't do anything with your social security number, and they don't want anything that you have. So just make sure that you're not cheating yourself by being over protective. And again, if it feels sketchy, it's probably something you shouldn't be applying for. Don't lie about your finances, your address, and requirements that make you eligible. And let me tell you why. That is punishable by fines and or jail time. The thing is that especially with some organizations and nonprofits, they are getting their money and they're operating because they are following government stipulations and getting government funds. So as an example, in the DC area, I don't know if you guys have ever heard like other teenagers or other college students talk about something called DC Tag. So DC Tag is the tuition assistance grant. The reason why students, and let me just clear the air because this is always a rumor, it does not mean that if you are from DC, you can go to college for free everywhere, you get in-state everywhere. That's not true. What DC Tag does is makes up the difference up to $10,000 between out-of-state in-state tuition. So as an example, when I went to A&T years ago, the out-of-state tuition for A&T was $16,000. The in-state tuition was $8,000. DC Tag would pay up to $10,000. And so because DC Tag was able to come in and give up to $10,000 of the 16, I was only left to pay like $8,000 or something like that, which looks like I only had to pay in-state tuition. That's not true. I paid out of state. I just had a grant that took care of half of it. Saying all of that to say, the only way anyone should get DC Tag is that they are a bona fide resident of the District of Columbia. That means that they live there, they pay taxes there, they have bills there, like they really live there. Not my client. I had a sibling, I had a student who had a sibling, and the mom, they manipulated some information. They were really living in Maryland, but they made it look like they lived in DC on paper. And they got that $10,000 from TAG every year while she attended Virginia State University. So that's 10, 20, 30, 40. An investigation, unbeknownst to them, started halfway through her college career, but it took a while to catch them. The minute that they graduated, they got subpoenaed, and they had to pay all of that DC Tag money back, plus restitution, And on top of being embarrassed because they lied about their residency, and DC tag is that's federal money. Although it says DC, that's federal money that's given to DC to pay for students, because we don't have the colleges and universities in DC. All of them are private except for the University of District of Columbia. So we don't have the option we only have one school where we can get in state. All of the other schools are private and super expensive. And that's why we have tag, because we don't have a choice like everyone else. All the other states can go to several different public schools and say, I'll do in-state tuition. We only have one school where we can do that. So be honest, don't lie about your finances, don't lie about your address, and make sure that you're really telling the truth, because you can get into a lot of trouble. Even if it doesn't happen right when you do it, it can catch up with you at the end. Don't count yourself out if you're super close to the requirements. So as an example, let's say you see a really good scholarship and it's asking for a 3.8. You have like a 3.75 or like a 3.69. Take the chance. Take the chance and apply for that scholarship. Because there may be a good reason why you're not quite at that 3.8. There's something could have happened while you were in high school that kind of threw you off. Or they may get applications from other people who do have the 3.8, but the rest of the application sucked. So don't count yourself out. I would not apply if they're asking for a 3.8 and I got a 3.0, because then you're just like super reaching. But if you're really, really close, go for it anyway. And don't waste time on reach scholarships. So if they're saying this scholarship is for people who have a 3.6 and interested in engineering, and you have a 3.1 and you want to do pre-nursing, that's a waste of time. Don't apply for that scholarship. Are there any questions about the don'ts? Okay, I'll go to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about institutional scholarships. Institutional scholarships are scholarships that are awarded by colleges and universities because you've been accepted. And again, they may be based on need, merit, or a combination of both. This sometimes a lot of it comes from alumni giving, which is why they're always saying, make sure you give back to university. It's not always about how the school looks, but sometimes this money goes into scholarships. But usually with institutional scholarships, they require that you have a pretty good GPA. I've seen some institutions, they only require maybe a 2.8, and that's probably at the request of those who are funding that scholarship. They may, have a personal connection, say, hey, I'm not worried about a 3.5 as long as they have a 2.5 or a 2.7. They may ask for your test scores. Sometimes it's based on your major or your hometown. I want to say this as well, and I don't know if my seniors on the call have done that, but if you haven't, you'll know for maybe the next time you are applying for possibly grad school. But my juniors and those who are younger, when you are applying for college and you know that you have a pretty good GPA, or even if your GPA is not like necessarily a 3.5, always search that school website for the institutional scholarships. A lot of good students miss out on institutional scholarships because you apply to the school and you think, oh, well, I have a 3.5 or I have a 3.0, 2.9. All I have to do is apply and get in. They'll probably give me the scholarship. Not always true. With some schools, you have to do the application, and then with their institutional scholarships, they have separate steps. So there are separate applications that you have to fill out. There are separate essays that you have to write. You have to get different kinds of letters of recommendation. You may have to do an interview. It's a whole separate entity. So make sure that when you are applying for the school, you are also applying for institutional scholarships. Again, some of them may be automatically given to you and you don't have to do that, but you always want to make sure if you do that you're following those steps. And usually the general deadline to get institutional money is December 1st. So it's unlikely you're going to find like a lot of scholarship opportunities that are institutional open right now. So that's why it's best to get your applications in early so that you have your applications and those institutional scholarship applications in by the general deadline.
I think we have a question.
You have a question? Okay, go
I
ahead.
think it's one in the chat. It says, what do they take into account when you're weighted GPA or other GPA? The young lady says she has a 3.0 regular and a weighted 4. Would she be able to get a scholarship?
So it just really depends. I feel like most of the schools, they want to know what is your unweighted GPA to make that determination. A 3.0 though, you're eligible for scholarships. There are scholarships for students with a 3.0. It just also depends on, if you're talking about institutional, it just depends on your major a lot of the time. So as an example, let's say you want to go to A&T, but you want to do engineering. To get those engineering institutional scholarships, A&T may be asking you to have like a 3.5 or 6, because you already know that's like that's a hard major. It's a very competitive department, and they're pretty selective. Whereas
I'm sorry, she said she had a 3.8.
3.8. Oh, okay. And the question was,
so if she has a 3.8, but the scholarship requires her to have a 4.0, I mean, like she has a 3.8 unweighted, but it requires a 4.0 weighted, would she still be able to kind of get a scholarship or qualify for it?
oh, okay. So the scholarship wants she has a 3.8 weighted, but the scholarship wants a 4.0 unweighted.
Or vice versa.
What I would do is, if whatever they're asking for, you need to compare. So if they are saying a 4.0 unweighted, you need to look at what your unweighted GPA is. And if it's kind of like far off, I wouldn't apply, because the likelihood of you getting it is slim. But let's say the scholarship is a 4.0 unweighted, and you have like a 3.87 unweighted. I would shoot my shot if it was that close. I just would. That's what I would do. But if it's a 4.0 unweighted and you have a 3.6 unweighted, I probably wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. And the reasoning behind that for me is I'm thinking about time. Like, is this useful? I already know this is a reach. It's not like, I'm a couple of points away. I'm about 4 or 5 points away. You get what I'm saying? So, and I will also look at the other things that they are requiring. And sometimes, it doesn't hurt to send an email. I've had students who've been in that predicament, like, I'm a couple points away. I just don't want to waste my time. If you reach out to them, most times they are very, whoever the scholarship people are, they are very transparent. They'll say, yeah, unfortunately, we don't think that this would, we don't think that this would be a good fit for you. Or they'll say, well, actually, we're having some flexibility with COVID, especially because of the pandemic. If they're saying like, oh, we'll have some flexibility, then apply for it. So look at what yours is unweighted compared to what they're asking for unweighted. And then I will shoot an email just to get transparency. And I think that'll put you in a better place. All right, so I want to talk briefly about the FAFSA. I'm not going to get into the weeds with this too much. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because a lot of scholarships that you're going to apply for, they want to see your FAFSA application. And as you may or may not know, with the FAFSA, you need to be a U.S. citizen or eligible non-U.S. citizen. You need an FSA ID. My juniors, this is something that you will start preparing for this summer. If you are male between the age of 18 and 25, you have to register with the Selective Service. If you are a parent or guardian, your citizenship does not matter. It matters for that of your child. And just knowing what a parent is as far as the FAFSA, it's by birth or legal adoption only. And step parents, if you have a natural birth parent that has remarried and they're taking care of you, that your step parent would go on the FAFSA as well. Unfortunately, a lot of times we have people who step up and take care of kids who are not theirs and they've been there, but unless it was legally court-ordered adopted, they do not go on the FAFSA. So just throwing that tidbit out there, make sure that you get the FAFSA completed, because a lot of the times the scholarships will have you do the application and then they say, okay, did you do the FAFSA? We need to see the results of that. Just some things about the FAFSA. When you do the FAFSA, if you qualify based on income, you can get to up to $6,345. That is a Pell Grant. You don't pay that back. Everyone does not get the Pell Grant. It is based on what you put as far as income. Students, though, your first time students, you will be offered these two loans, the unsubsidized and subsidized loans, and federal work study. So you may or may not be offered, but when you do the FAFSA, you have to check off that you're interested in it. So the FAFSA opens October 1st. It closes June 30th. After June 30th, applying for, you have to wait until October 1st to apply for the next school year. The priority deadline for the FAFSA, so basically what they're saying is if you want to be in the best position to get additional federal monies, you want to get in your FAFSA by March 1st. And essay writing. So I'm going to go through some points. If you have any questions about essay writing, because I know this was one of the questions that was submitted, I'm happy to answer those questions. Essay writing is like one of the biggest things about scholarships, and your essay can make or break that decision on awarding that scholarship to you. So key points: be honest. We don't want to make up stories that don't exist. One good reason why is because a lot of the time students will get selected to be a finalist, and then you're asked to participate in an interview. And if you can't recall what you wrote, then that's a big red flag. So make sure that you're being honest in your essays. You want to dissect the prompt and answer all the questions. Sometimes these scholarships, they come with like multiple questions. The best advice that I could give is that you want to break those questions up and make sure that as you're writing your essay, you are deliberately answering every single question, because they are looking for every single answer. You want to make sure that your essays are showing your character, leadership, and academic passion. Those are the main things. 9 times out of 10, these scholarships are going to ask, tell us about a time when you had to be a leader. Tell us about a time when you had to show a good character. Talk about an obstacle that you went through. How do you plan on giving back to your community? All of those things fall under those categories. So make sure that your essays are relevant with that type of content. Don't regurgitate your transcript. So it's amazing if you have good grades, A's, B's, 3.0, 2.9, you're doing great. But you don't want to bore the people who are reading your essay. They know what you have. They have your transcript. They have your resume. They are reading the letters of recommendation. Your essay should be talking about something. If they don't remember your name, they will at least remember your story. So you should be talking about something that will stick with them, that will make them remember who you are. And I also want to stress the point that not every story has to be sad. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the times, especially with our students, students of color, that people think that the essay always has to be like, oh, woe is me, and oh, I live in this bad neighborhood and this parent isn't there. That does not have to be their story, because simply that's not everyone's life. But everyone has a story that they can tell that talks about character, that talks about their dreams, their hopes, a difficulty, just something that sets your essay should be a story that almost separates you from your transcript, but shows the connection. So we're not just boring everyone to death about, oh, I got an A in this class because I studied really hard. That's obvious. We want to hear about things that really set you apart and make you deserving of this money. Make sure that you're using good grammar. Utilize your English teachers, utilize your history teachers, utilize your criminal justice professors. These are people who have spent a lot of time writing. And I'm also going to say, just because they're a teacher, that doesn't mean that some of them always write well. But make sure that you are giving your essays to someone who is well versed in this, and they're professional, and they can give you honest feedback. Tell a story. Put the readers there. Use a lot of imagery. The reader should be able to hear, feel, sense, see, smell. Like, they should be so engulfed in what you're saying, like they're starting to visualize everything that you're talking about. Those are the essays that win. If COVID impacted you, write about it. If it didn't, do not. There were some students, honestly, aside from having to stay home, no one lost a job, no one got sick. it wasn't as deep. So if you know, like, I don't really have anything to say about COVID, then don't reach. But if COVID did impact you significantly, if you have the space for that, use it, but don't overdo it. You don't want every single essay to be about that. Your essay should reflect who you are. So if you write this essay, you should have no problem discussing it. If you're sitting on a panelist with finalists who are interested in hearing your story. Always cite your references for statistics and information. One thing that happens in the start of essays is that we always have our hook, right? So you can start off with a question, a thought-provoking question, statistics, facts, an anecdote. But anytime you are using information that's, you're calling on numbers and data, make sure that you always cite that source. Are there any questions about the essay writing tips? And I'll pause for a second just in case it's any in the chat.
I haven't seen one about the essay, but someone posted, if you are adopted in NC, well, in North Carolina, and you go to college for free, do you still need to apply for FAFSA?
Yeah, you should apply for FAFSA. The reason why, if you're eligible to apply for FAFSA by being like a U.S. citizen or eligible non-U.S. citizen, scholarship opportunities want to see something. They want to see something called a student aid report. And the student aid report comes from the FAFSA and it just verifies everything about your income. They do ask questions about, are you adopted? So you do want to get your FAFSA done, because by not doing the FAFSA, you kind of eliminate yourself from opportunities that you're deserving of. So yeah, you want to get that FAFSA done regardless. Okay. Requested letters of recommendation. So we kind of bringing it on home now. This is something that Alana and I talked a lot about because this is honestly, next to the essay, this is a core piece of winning that scholarship or even being considered. So letters of recommendation. Who should I request LORs from? You should be getting letters of recommendation from your core subject teachers and teachers that teach in the field that you're interested in. So when I say core subject, math, English, science, history, things of that nature. If you are interested in nursing, you should get some letters from your science teacher. If you are interested in STEM, your science teacher, your math teacher. If you are interested in, like, let's just say health sciences or sports medicine, get something from your health and physical education teacher. Make sure that the letters of recommendation are reflective of what you want to study in school. A lot of the time students are like, oh, I want to study bio, but like you got letters of recommendation from people who may say great things about you, but they're not saying how you would do in the field. And that's what schools and scholarship organizations want to see. They want to hear it from someone who's already been there, how you would be an asset to the field that they're already in. If you have ever worked a job, summer job, a fall job, a weekend job, you've ever done community service, you've ever participated in anything outside of school, you need to get those letters. Something else that will eliminate you from submitting an application is you got all the letters from people inside of your school, but the scholarship is asking, hey, we need some letters from people that are not in your school every day. We want to see how you act in the community. You need to get those letters. Don't feel like, oh, well, I can't ask this employer for a letter of recommendation because I worked there last summer and I haven't spoken to them. The thing is this, we all know that you all are young, college students or teenagers. We're not going to speak to you every day. We probably don't follow you on social media. You come in, you do your thing, you do your job, you go back to school. We don't hear from you. But if you left a good impression, and a good impression doesn't necessarily mean you're someone who talked all the time or, you were very chatty in the office. It just means that you did what you were supposed to do and you did it well. Ask for that letter of recommendation. It's good to start off with the hi, I hope all is well. I know it's been a long time. I'm applying for college. Trust me, people love being asked, especially those who don't work in the schools. They love to write letters of recommendation and they'll be happy to do it for you. So don't feel like, These people aren't your peers. It's different when you haven't spoken to a peer or a friend in 3 weeks and now you need them to do you a favor. These are adults, they're professionals, it happens. So make sure that you reach back to those people, even if you worked for them 2 years ago. If they're still there, get those letters of recommendation. Assessing your relationships with your teachers. What grades did you earn? So if you clowned around in that class, C's, D's, F's, you probably should not be asking that teacher for a letter of recommendation. And the reason why is because they need to speak to your academic strengths, and what can they say if you flunk their classes. And there are some relationships where, yeah, you flunk the classes, but y'all get along so good. But for this, you need people who can speak to both. Have we had issues in the past that were resolved or unresolved? Those are things to ask yourself before you request these letters of recommendations. And don't feel that you need to be very close to a recommender to request a letter of recommendation. At the end of the day, this is business. This is how the teachers see it, the administrators see it, the people that you work for in the summertime see it. It's business, it's a request, they do it for you and they wish you well. Don't feel like you need to have a very close relationship. If you do, that's great, but don't feel like you need to have one, because sometimes those are the people that will write the best letters for you. So how to ask for a letter of recommendation. You always want to make it formal and do it via email. Include the information about the scholarship and the deadline for you. So when I say for you don't give them the deadline of the scholarship when it's due. You give them an earlier deadline for when you need it back, and you need it back probably at least 5 to 7 days before it's due at minimum. So you want to be respectful of their time, but you don't want to be hanging on a string waiting for them at the 9th hour. So professional and formal request. Is my email account that I'm sending a request from professional? So first and last name, email handle, avoid nicknames. I cannot tell you, I can't take a student seriously if you're asking me for a letter of recommendation and your email is yesmissgirl@gmail.com. I don't even want to read whatever you just said. So make sure that you have a professional email. Always use an email address that you have access to permanently. I know a lot of schools, especially high schools, they give you a school email, but that school email may get cut off in May, June, whenever you graduate. You want to make a separate email, maybe that's just for college stuff, just for work stuff, and make sure that you have 24-hour access to it on your phone, on your computer. You don't want to keep doing things from your school email, especially when we're talking about deadlines. What if I can't find their email address? Should I call? Yes, you should call and leave a voicemail first and then text. And the reason why I said that first, I said call, is because I know we're in the age of text, but we have to think about some of the professionals that we may be asking stuff from who may be a little older. They're not heavy into texting. So if you can't find their email address, give them a call. That means pick up the phone, dial their numbers, wait for it to ring, see if a voice is on the end. And if they don't answer, leave them a voicemail. It seems archaic, but it works. Some people check their voicemail. I am sketchy on checking voicemail, but leave a voicemail and then shoot a text. How do I ask for a letter of recommendation? So when you do this, you want to greet them, state your goals. Hey, I'm headed to college. I want to be a dentist, et cetera, et cetera. Attach the scholarship application to the email. You don't know for two reasons. One, you want them to be informed. Two, you don't know who they know that might be in charge of the scholarship. There's always a plug to help you get some money. So make sure that you attach that information. Include your deadline. And again, it should be at least 5 days ahead. When you're asking for letters of recommendation, request a signature on a letterhead and for them not to specify the scholarship if they don't have to. So when I say that, when I'm asking for a letter of recommendation, I'm actually going to show you some examples of what I mean. A lot of scholarships are asking for an electronic signature and they want it on a professional letterhead. So you want to make sure that you let them know that. Now, some people may be in a position where, well, I don't have a letterhead to put something on. If they don't have a letterhead, okay, fine. Make sure that you let the organization know that. But 9 times out of 10, if you're asking a professional, they can find a letterhead, or they can even make one up. And make sure that you have the appropriate signatures. So I actually did give a lot of these examples. As exemplars to give to you guys, especially when you go back to your classes on Monday, as you're applying for scholarships, as you're finding things. So this is just an exemplar of a professional request. As you see, we open with the greeting. I hope this finds you well. I'm interested in studying biology. I'm saying what schools I want to go to. In bold, I have the deadline for me. The scholarship may not be due until April 5th, but I'm asking for it on the 26th of March. Lastly, the letter should be signed and on a letterhead if possible, and I'm more than happy if you guys take this example from Alana and you tailor it for you and you use it, because this shows that you are learning professionalism, and people are much faster. They will respond much faster if you ask the correct way. So here's some don'ts that I have gotten, and I have been in education in the schools formally since 2010, and education since 2008. So these are just some requests that I hate. Miss So-and-so, I need a letter of recommendation by Friday. Do you think you can write me one? Sorry for the last minute. I don't know okay, you said it's by Friday. I don't know who it's for. I don't know if I have to sign, like something like that. And you're asking me at the last minute, I'm going to tell you no. So this is what you don't want to do. You don't want to do a verbal request. Here's why. It's good to mention that, but if you're going to verbally request, follow up with an email. Teachers are busy, administrators are busy, people are busy. They may mean well, but they'll totally forget. So please, please, please always send it in an email. Don't request a letter if you've not read the details of what the recommender needs to do. Some letters of recommendation require that they upload letters, open certain links, complete surveys, and or add their real ink signature. It is your job to know what they're supposed to do. Everything isn't going to be about just writing a letter. Sometimes they got to open up a link. Sometimes they have to upload stuff. Sometimes they have to call people. You need to be very well versed in what it is that they need to do. Even if you write them and put it like bulleted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, here are all the steps. People appreciate that because that takes time off of their hands with having to do what you should know. Bad letters of recommendation. So if you get a recommendation letter for a scholarship and it sucks, it's terrible. Here are some signs of that. The spelling and grammar is incorrect. And I can tell you as a professional, I've seen some professionals, some teachers write some letters that were so bad that we did not allow the student to use it. We trashed it. Because it probably was last minute, or maybe they just really didn't like the kid and they just said, they just wrote it and just gave it to them. But spelling and grammar is incorrect. The content is not relevant, or the recommender isn't saying good things about me. I have seen letters where it's like, well, if you were going to say that, you should have just said no. Always read the letters. The name and or gender is incorrect. I just had a student Friday, because the teacher is writing so many recommendations. He had his name, and this is a male who identifies as a male. He had her, she, her, like he kept switching because he's using the same letter for different kids. So you always want to make sure that those things are corrected. And if you get a letter and it's kind of bad, this is just one example of how to write them back. You thank them for doing this. You thank them for supporting you. But you say, hey, I see some things that may need some edits. I've outlined them below. I would appreciate it if you could take a review of this. Just ask them to fix it. That's what my student had to do. The man had no problem. He went back and he corrected it. And if your teacher says no, I have been a teacher that have said, I cannot write you a letter of recommendation at this time. So here's what you do with that. Accept what they said, reflect on why they may have said no. And sometimes it's really not your fault. They may just they're not doing it. It's okay to ask why, but you want to be respectful and move on. you need to move on because we need people who are going to write the letters, and we don't need to press people who already said that they're not. So as an example, if you get a bad letter, dear Mr. So-and-so, thank you for responding to my request. I do understand that at this time you are not able to provide me with a letter of recommendation. I appreciate your response and transparency, the end, and move on. Because it does happen and they're not obligated to tell you yes. So last thing, if you have less than competitive GPAs and scores, aim for safety and meet scholarships. And I'm saying this because this maybe applies to some people who are like, I'm not in a position where I'm probably going to get too many scholarships. So if it's that low, you may want to consider community college first. You definitely want to apply to safety schools. You want to apply to test optional schools. You may consider deferring your enrollment or doing a gap year. If there are things that played into your low GPA or test scores and why you may not be the best, not the best, but you may not be the top pick for a scholarship, make sure you express those things in your essays. And there are scholarships that don't require GPAs and test scores. You may want to shoot for those. I will say that those scholarships are sometimes the luck of the draw, especially when they say they're open to students at ages 5 to 18 or grade 6 to 12. That means they're getting zillions and zillions of applications. So it would be based on luck. I am more of a fan of concentrated scholarships that are narrowed down to people in a certain city, in a certain major, going to a certain school that fit a certain bracket, because those scholarship applications get more attention. So that's maybe the route that you may want to take to make sure that you're able to pay for school via scholarships. Let's see. So you want to go where it's affordable and accredited. This is just information about college. Most people do not get a full ride. So if you do not get all scholarships to pay for school, please don't feel like you are less than. Everybody doesn't get a full ride, and loans are there for a reason. Employers look for skill. They're not really, that's great if you graduated from a top college, an Ivy League or selective school, but in the work world, with the world that I'm in, people want to know about your skill. They could really care less about where you went. As long as you can do the job and you do it well, that's what matters. So don't let people kind of downplay if you're going to one school versus another school. At the end of the day, you all are in the same office, and those conversations about schools, they really aren't happening. Apply for scholarships that are a match for you in high school and college. Grants, I get a lot of questions about grants. When you are a first-time student, the grant that you're usually getting is the Pell Grant. It's not a gang of grants out there for people that want to go to college. Those grants that are for students are usually tied to research. So if you're doing something in biology or like education, that means that you have opted to do some research, and in return, you're getting a grant to pay for school as you do that research. It's not a lot of grants out there for first-time students graduating from high school. Treat looking for scholarships as a class. So this is something you should set aside at least twice a week. Honestly, I feel like you should be doing at least 5 to 10 scholarships every week until you graduate, and then some. The more you do, the better your chances are for earning scholarship money. And down below are just a few scholarship websites that I trust, that I use, that I find scholarships on. So CHEEG, CHEEG, scholarships.com, JLV Counseling, UNCF, Unigo, and Scholly. Scholly is also an app. Those are websites that I trust. I have found scholarships on there for students. They have won scholarships that are on there. It's a lot. You got to fish through it. But the scholarships are there. And at this time, I want to answer a few questions that were submitted early. I really appreciate you guys submitting questions. I didn't put every question because I think some of the questions I've probably answered by now, but I did want to pull these. So my nephew is unsure of his major. He's a senior in high school. What should be his approach for applying for scholarships? Hopefully your nephew is applying for scholarships right now. I can tell you March 20, this is like the height of scholarship season. My days have been ending at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night just by me pulling scholarships that are out there. So if he hasn't applied for scholarships, March is a wonderful time to get started because there are a lot of scholarships out there. And I would advise him to keep applying. You know, they start to dry up around the end of May, June, and then you start getting those like no scholarship essay scholarships, everybody from age 10 to 20. You start getting those kind of like lucky draw scholarships, but the concentrated ones, especially those ones associated with the Black Greek organizations, they're out now, and I would work on those. Besides the Hope Scholarship, are there any scholarships aimed for the youth that does not have a 4.0 but a 3.3? Basically, are there any out of the box scholarships? Absolutely. So I wasn't really familiar with the Hope Scholarship. I did look it up, and it seems like that's a scholarship that's open in only certain states. I did see that it's in Georgia. I'm not sure if this is our Georgia attendee asking this question. But there are certainly scholarships that are out there for a 3.3. A 3.3 is a pretty solid GPA. They may be, you know, but other things that tie to scholarships, it's good to have a 3.3, but do you have community service? Are you involved in school activities? Are you involved in community activities? Do you have an amazing story that you can write about? Because a 3.3 isn't enough. What I will say is if you have a 3.3 and you have like crazy community service hours, you've been in a zillion organizations, you're an athlete, you're this and you're that. A lot of those scholarships, honestly, they came and went. They were in the fall. So now what you probably want to do is focus on those concentrated scholarships that are in your community. So in your city, in your town, again, the Black Greek organizations, I'm just going to keep pushing that because they give out scholarships. They give a lot of scholarships out to a lot of kids. But there are also always out the box scholarships. Also, think about what makes your nephew unique. And I know there were a couple of questions about the left-handed scholarship and all of those things. But unique as in, does he, you know, play a certain sport? Is he involved in a different type of club? Like, does he play lacrosse? Is he on the I can't think of the sport where they have like they're in the boats and they kind of like compete with each other. There are schools that are definitely giving scholarships out for students that do that. So aside from the 3.3, what sets him apart? And then go from there. How do I find one for me and apply for it? So hopefully you can look at some of those websites that I told you about. And I'm going to send a condensed version of this presentation to Alana so you all can have it. But those websites also allow you to kind of filter out some things. So it'll allow you to put where you live, what's your GPA, what you're interested in, what's your income. It'll narrow things down for you, and you will see see scholarships just for you.
Hey, Andrea,
yes.
Can you stop sharing your screen so you can see the chat as well?
Oh, okay. Let me stop. Sorry.
You're fine. And if y'all can start asking y'all's questions because we are winding down. Thank you for going past the time, Andrea, but this is the time to ask questions. I know y'all are looking for scholarships, so let's make it happen. Thank you.
Okay. So some of you want a question. If you adopted letter of recommendation, early, people wait until the last minute. Save yourself. What should you do if your recommender isn't comfortable with you reading their letter? Okay. What should you do if your recommender isn't comfortable with you reading their letter before you submit it? I think that's a case by case basis. Personally, I would wonder why you're uncomfortable with me not reading it. I think that's between you and the recommender. I don't really have a standard answer for that. You can ask them why. I don't think it's anything wrong with asking why, but I feel like that would be a little weird. You don't want me to read the letter. I'm a freshman, and if I apply for a scholarship that's based on my GPA, they will be looking at GPA throughout my high school years. Yeah. So there's this thing where they say, oh, well, they're only looking at 12th grade. Scholarship organizations giving out $10,000, $3,000, $5,000. They're looking at everything. They're looking at everything. If there's anything sketchy, you know, like some F's, some D's, some absences, make sure you explain that. Are there enough scholarships and information available online for free that you don't need to invest in programs that you send scholarship info? Are there enough scholarships? I'm guessing this question is, are there enough is there enough scholarship information online for free? I mean, it honestly is, but it's a lot. And you have to know what's legitimate, what's not, what's a good use of your time, what isn't. If you would like to, take the time to look for things, there are things, those websites that I mentioned, those are good. Those are really good websites. And as a consultant, I use those scholarships. I use those websites all the time. Where do I find scholarships for senior citizens? Absolutely. There are scholarships for senior citizens on those websites that I mentioned, especially JLV Counseling. Again, they have filters where you can kind of put in, what your situation is, your age, have you graduated already? Are you, you would be considered a non-traditional student. So just check those websites out and look at the filters. The Scholly app, you do have to pay for it. Well, I know you used to have to pay for it. I think it's like $2. There are scholarships for senior citizens. Great session. What is the youngest grade to apply? It varies. There are scholarships, starting for kids as young as 5 years old. But again, some of those scholarships are really broad. So you're applying with a million other applications because they don't really have tight stipulations behind it. But you can always get started early. Are there a lot of scholarships out there for high school juniors? There are scholarships where juniors can fit into the category, again, where they say like, oh, this is open for ages 14 to 18. Some scholarships for juniors are very competitive. So there's one scholarship called the Coolidge Scholarship. It's a national scholarship. They pay for room and board and tuition. It is extremely competitive. So if you're a junior and you have really good grades and scores and you're taking competitive classes like AP, IB, then I would look into the Coolidge Scholarship for next year. Are there scholarships for students of incarcerated parents? Yes. There is one scholarship. It is called Scholar Chips. See, I'm going to actually put it in the chat. Now, I'm not sure if that scholarship is only based for students in this area. I don't think it is, but that is for students who have incarcerated parents. I want to say that that's open to everyone. Yes, a 5-year-old can get a scholarship if the scholarship is open for a 5-year-old. When should high school juniors start to apply for FAFSA, since I'm going to start to apply to college at the end of this year? You don't apply for FAFSA until October 1st, because when you apply the October of your senior year, that's setting you money aside for your freshman year next fall. Thank you. Awesome information. Thank you. Do tell, what are those websites? Okay, I'll send those to Alana. Scholarships. This was very informative. Thank you. Are there any more questions? I know there were a couple of questions left on that slide.
Mrs. Can you talk about, can you spell out the scholarship you said for students that do AP classes?
So the scholarship that actually just made me remember a point. So 2 things. If you are a student and you know anything about College Board, College Board has scholarships. College Board awards scholarships. You do have to have like competitive, I think some of them you need to have competitive GPAs and take like AP classes. But the other scholarship that I was talking about is called the Coolidge Scholarship. I'm putting it in the chat. That is for juniors. And it's a very, very competitive scholarship because it's full tuition, room and board and everything. And you don't, I'm not saying you have to take AP courses, but the students who win that scholarship are usually they're in competitive classes.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm putting my email in the chat. That was on the last slide too. Alana, do you mind if I put up this last slide with my information?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, guys. So you guys can, you guys can send me an email or follow me on, and I'm very responsive with emails. That's the information about the scholarship boot camp. So I do offer a scholarship boot camp service to do all those, help you with all those things that we talked about. And this is my information. So the quickest response will probably be email and Instagram. I do check the Facebook and the Twitter often. Nobody talks to me on Twitter. But if you guys follow me on Instagram, I'm always checking my DMs. I'm happy to answer any questions. You don't need to set up an appointment for me to answer certain questions. So if you guys follow me on Instagram, you can send me an email. I don't have my email up. Sorry. So my email is info@educationprepplus.com. Okay, hopefully everyone got it. So I'm just going to put my information in the chat.
Oh, I put it in there for you.
Oh, okay.
Well, I thank you, Andrea, for this great session. I mean, I don't know about you, but I learned, well, y'all, but I learned something because I don't have children. So I learned something new today. So I would hope that you all have gained the knowledge that you needed. I also asked, if possible, could you do like a review of this presentation so that we can make sure that we can get it to Miss Andrea so she can use it for her business. If you want to send just a small email just saying, hey, I was able to learn how to find scholarships because this information session was just so great, I would greatly appreciate that. I will get the email out to everyone once I receive the materials from Miss Andrea. So just give me time and give her time. So we thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a great weekend and be safe. And thank you, Andrea. You are awesome.
Thank you so much. If you guys have any questions, please send me an email or DM. You guys have a good weekend.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.